Welcome to Meet Mistral AI, a series where we speak to the people behind AI, the people who help make the magic happen. Today, I'm joined by Arthur Mensch, the CEO and co-founder of Mistral AI. Arthur, thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me in this podcast.
So, Arthur, let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about what life was like growing up for you?
Well, life was I grew up in a very loving family, and I grew up in a scientist family. So I was pretty quickly deep into mathematics and deep into computer science. Learned to code when I was, as everybody, I guess, in the field, but when I was 8 years old. And I've been fascinated by computers and by mathematics ever since I was that age. And so I did scientific studies, did engineering studies, and then I moved to do a PhD in machine learning. And back at the time, it was 2015, we were starting to see that what we call natural language processing at the time was starting to work, and generative systems of generating images, generating text were starting to be on the path toward greatness. And I've been working in that domain for the last 10 years. So all the way from 2015 to 2023 as an AI scientist, starting in academia in France and then working with Google. And in 2023, we realized that there was quite an inflection point and that we could build something of our own. And that's how we got started with Guillaume and Timothée.
Now, you in your career, you were able to do research in a lot of different parts of the world. Can you speak to some of those experiences?
Yes, so I did my PhD in France, but also spent a lot of time in New York working on the game theory at the time, and I also spent some time in Japan, where I was again working on transformers back in 2017, so when they were just out. So that's actually Japan was when I got started on natural language processing, and this is really like the core driver now of intelligence as we know it, artificial intelligence as we know it.
And what were transformers like in 2017?
They were very small, actually. There was 150 million parameters, and they were trained on like a ridiculous amount of compute at the time. But it was quite an innovation then. They were doubling down on a mechanism called attention, on which I was actually working. And what they did was to adapt the architecture to the TPUs and to the GPUs. And it turned out to be a very stable architecture, because that's still the architecture that we use today.
So let's fast forward. You're at Google DeepMind. Walk kind of us through your thinking as you were getting ready to kind of start a business.
So I was at Google DeepMind for 2 years and a half, and I joined the team. It was a small team at the time that was really working on scaling large language models, and we did very interesting work at the time where we corrected scaling laws. We started to work on retrieval mechanisms that everybody used all the time now. And back at the end of 2022, had discussions with Timothée, who is a friend of mine for the last 10 years. We did our master together. We realized that there was plenty of very strong people in France. We also realized that we wanted to do things more open. We wanted to promote more decentralization of that technology. And in the world we were living in back then, you only had like a couple of players that were about to centralize knowledge and centralize control. And so that's how we got started with the premises that we wanted to commit to open source and to put very strong models as open source to try and change the path that the industry was taking. And I guess the profound reason behind that was our history. We had been working for like the last 8 years in the domain of AI. And until 2019, 2020, everything was open. So you would have industrial labs, you would have universities that would come every 6 months, gather together in conferences, share knowledge, and you would come home and then build new things on top. And that's how we accelerated towards the first large language models that worked. And then, of course, suddenly everybody realized that there was possibly a business to be built on that. And so the natural motion was to close things up. And because we think that AI is infrastructure that is going to be critical and that is going to be everywhere, we had this thesis that it needed to be open source, and that by building open source models, we could actually build a meaningful business on top. And so that's how we got started 2023.
So walk me through what happens next. Like, how do you all of a sudden go from an idea to something that really caught the attention of the world?
Well, I guess that's an idea we started to have, like it's in January, February, and the company was funded in at the end of April. And in a way, it's a bit of a ratchet motion because you start thinking maybe I should build a company, and then you start to realize maybe it might be more interesting than what I'm doing today. And then you start meeting people that are telling you, yeah, I guess you should build a company. It seems a good idea. And then you meet people that you can hire and that are excited by the project. And at some point you say, okay, I'm more like 50% leaning in on making the company. So maybe that means I need to tell my bosses that I'm going to move. And at that point, you start doing that. And that's how I moved at the time from Google. And that's how then once I had moved, I started to fundraise because that's what you need to do if you want to have enough GPUs to get started. So that was April 2023. Took us to May, where we started to have our first employees. And by mid-July, we had 15 people, all scientists experienced. And the initial project was to work on a 7 billion parameter model called Mistral 7B, and then to release it to the world. And that's what we did in 4 months. So it was a pretty busy summer. And that's how we got known, because suddenly there was a meaningful model that could be deployed on laptops, and that was working very well. So that changed a bit the course of history in AI, because that was really taking a direction toward closed APIs, etc.
And then, what happens next in kind of the evolution of the company from your vantage point?
So Mistral 7B was a starting point, and then we started to invest on what we call mixture of experts. So it led to the release of a new model in December. Again, same team, 15 people. We started to onboard a few people doing business development to start and see who we could be starting to work with from the business side. And then we released Mistral ATX 7B. We did another fundraise led by Henri Senorowitz at the end of 2023. And by then, we had a pretty good sense of what we needed to build in terms of, let's say, product and all of the forward deployment on top that would allow us to bring value to enterprises. Well, it was fairly vague at the time. We're starting to realize that there was a lot of buzz around AI, but if you were talking to enterprises, they had no idea what to do, and what they did was failing. And so we started to have 2 parallel tracks. One which was deeply in science, continue to invest, build frontier AI technology, add new modalities, make models better at long form reasoning, at mathematics, etc. And so that part is still like the core of the company. But on top of that, we started to have engineers. So new species of people at Mistral who were coming not necessarily with AI expertise, but that could actually build products. And this is a function that we started to scale in 2024. And alongside the go-to-market team that we've been using with a fully enterprise motion.
Wow. And so then, you start to have this product market fit, you could say. Can you describe through that moment? What was that like?
Well, I think you see it in for multiple kind of features and multiple kind of motions. What we started to realize that a lot of enterprises were looking for help, and that our open source models were creating opportunity for being known. And so we had a lot of inbound to manage at the time, 2024. A lot of them were also looking at having accrued privacy, accrued control, self-deployment, things where they would not rely on an external API, either because they wanted to have control over the switch buttons or because they had a lot of customization to do. So in a way, our releases of open source models showed that you could deploy the technology yourself and not rely on third-party providers. And it also showed that if you had proprietary data or knowledge, you could actually put it into the models. And so that created opportunities for us. And I mean, to be honest with you, at the time we had mostly models, so that's the thing we could sell. And we built like some enterprise version of our models that we could license, and we pretty quickly started to package them with some expertise to get to use cases. So really, the first product market fit was on a setup differentiation, so being able to deploy everywhere. And then the second product market fit we saw was in our vertically integrated motion, where we would bring models, orchestration, front end, and expertise. And that's really what is now driving the core of the business now in 2025.
Yeah, so this is really an area that Mistral AI differentiates itself in. You have the end-to-end AI solution and the ability to deploy on-prem and so many other factors. So from your vantage point, how does Mistral AI really differentiate itself?
So that's really the differentiation that is, I think, the most interesting one, and the one that is really driving the core of the business today is around our ability to automate end-to-end processes on one side in companies, and so really to make true cost saving and help reorganize how the teams are working in process heavy functions. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that somewhat goes together is that in general, companies also look at AI on look at the opportunity of AI to bring up the top line and bring up new revenues, build better products, etc. And so for this to work, they need to leverage their existing differentiation and defensibility and distill that into new products. And for this, again, the next step for that is that you need to build, to pour your own expertise, all of the R&D that you've been doing over the years into models that can then help you accelerate that R&D. So there's really two parts when we engage with enterprises. One of them is around process, bottom line. We deploy engineers. There's a lot of orchestration to do. Oftentimes we can just work on our off-the-shelf models, but what matters is to do the right orchestration, the right connection to data. And then the other side, which is, I would say, even more interesting to us scientists, is the fact that there's a lot of R&D expertise that can only be found in vertical champions. And that R&D expertise can be magnified if you bring AI to it, and if you build AI models that understand how to run physics, how to understand seismic data, how to run chemistry, how to do discovery of new materials. So that part requires the combination of horizontal science, so people that understand how to build AI models that reason, and vertical science, so people that understand how to build hardware, how to do physics, how to go into the hard sciences. And this is extremely interesting to work on. So of course, it's a great business model because this is something where there's virtually nobody is actually doing what we do. But what is also quite interesting is that we're also at the stage where the frontier AI technology that we are building ourselves, so the horizontal reasoning capabilities of our models, in certain capabilities, we're not able to go further by ourselves because we don't have access to physical environments. We don't have access to hardware. We don't know all of the IP that has been accrued by companies building planes, for instance. And that knowledge we can only tap into if we agree to bring our technology in a decentralized way, and we customize that technology with our partners. And so the frontier today is in AI is about getting into vertical with deep technological understanding and distilling that technological understanding into the models themselves. So that's extremely exciting for the team, which means that the science team, core science team, and the forward deployed science team are working together all the time, the one that are facing the customers and the one that are making models better at reasoning. And we do expect that in the years to come, that's going to be where we need to go. And that's how we'll make artificial intelligence bring real ROI.
Yes, this important point of kind of the ROI of AI for businesses. There's this idea that maybe just the off-the-shelf solution or just a chatbot, isn't enough in today's world. There's a lot more. Can you unpack that?
Yes. So again, two aspects. One of them is if you want to save costs, you're not going to save costs by rolling a chatbot to your employees, because of course it's useful, and we have an enterprise offering of Losha, which is super useful to innovate on the UX front, etc. But it's only going to bring you like a couple of hours per employee per week, and well, that's good, but that's not changing profoundly the way you should operate the business. Whereas on the other hand, if you use AI technology and the fact that AI models can go into all of the context of the enterprise and make sense of it, there's two things you can do. First of all, you can automate processes end to end. So maybe you have a process that involves 20 people greenlighting it and 15 different kind of software. If you stitch all of these things together in a way that is scalable, so you need the right product for that, but that's the thing we have built, you can actually move from a process involving 20 people times 2 hours to a process involving 5 people times 5 minutes. And so you can make gains that are in the range of an order of magnitude, and you can then reallocate your people, and you can reorganize your company around the fact that a lot of the processes you were running with a lot of coordination workforce can now be run fully autonomously. And of course, they will still ask for human clearance, etc., when needs be. But all of the menial tasks involved in process, and that's very true in logistics, in supply chain, for instance, well, those things can actually disappear. And that's where you make gains, because then you can reorganize and rethink about what are your cost structure and how you can reallocate your resources. So that's one thing. And what's interesting about this first thing is that you can get to value pretty quickly if you have the right engagement model, if you follow the right methodology, if you know how to build AI software, which requires to have an iterate process where you measure accuracy, you increase accuracy by getting more data, etc. But if you follow that in a couple of months, you can actually be already at value. And now the second part, which again takes us back to everything we do on the science front, is a little bit more long-term, because you need to invest. You need to bring your proprietary signal to foundational models. But if you do that, you're effectively distilling some expertise that you've accrued for multiple decades into systems that nobody will be able to reproduce. And then that allows you to create some products that are not going to be matchable by your competitors if you move faster. So that's why we take this double-sided approach where first, let's get to value quickly. There's a bunch of processes you can automate. You just need to follow the right methodology and have the right tools. And then second, let's look at the thing that are core business where you can make some very meaningful improvement that is going to make your product much better than your competitors. And that's the two things are, I think, should go together, because you can also reallocate resources from the first to the second. And that's, I think, how enterprises will get to value, to like strong growth thanks to AI.
And critical to this whole story is this ability to customize the models. Can you speak to that and how that's kind of core to the Mistral AI philosophy?
Absolutely. And when we think about customization, we don't really think about it at the model level necessarily, but we think about it as at the system level. You want any system in that uses AI should be able to get some feedback from users, should be able to run processes on the background that are making sense of all of the data that is connected to the tool. And you should be able to evaluate the performance, figure out the gaps, and when there is a gap, figure out how you fix that gap by getting more data, more content, or more knowledge. So that's really, as an enterprise that has no knowledge of how AI works, that's really how I should be thinking about it. I want to make sure that all of the signal that my employees are making, all of the knowledge that I've accrued over time, can make its way into the systems themselves. And there are multiple ways at the low level how you can do it. Either you change the parameters of the models, so that's called fine-tuning, by following some demonstration, so that's called supervised fine-tuning and imitation learning. The other thing you can do is to get some rewards, so some feedback from users saying whether this is good or not, some comparison between different outputs, and this signal you can incorporate back into the models so that they perform better and get more rewards down the line. So that's called reinforcement learning. And the other thing that you can do, and that may be enough, is also to try and figure out, make more sense of the data. So you have access to data lakes where it's always a bit of a mess. You have access to system of records that may be 20 years old, and maybe the customer entity in your system of records, let's say of Salesforce, is quite different from the customer entity that you have in your ERP or on Snowflake. And the thing you need to do, and what an AI system can help you do, is figure out that these two things are the same, so that when as a user I make a request on what's up with a customer, it gives us a unified view of what's happening in the different system of records. So what's at stake there is that you're not modifying the models, but you're asking the system to build a state representation of the different entities across your different IT systems. So what's interesting there is that you can actually get started with legacy systems. You don't need to revamp your entire data orchestration, etc. You can trust the AI to build some intermediary representation of it. So that's how you can make some form of customization of having the system progressively understand better the environment you're putting it in. And enterprise environment, as we know, are extremely complex. And so that's where they can help figuring out signal from the noise.
I mean, it's amazing because that's how you can help businesses ultimately get ROI faster as well, right?
Yes, that's exactly how you get faster ROI. Because first of all, if you have more systems that can adapt to legacy IT setups, well, you don't need to reinvest in like cleaning the data and like spend yet 2 or 3 years to do that tidying work. You can already get started. And in AI, you want to get started soon, because the faster you start, the better and the fastest you get feedback from users, and the faster you're going to be able to increase the performance of the system. So get started fast, figure out how you're going to accrue more signal from your users, and don't think of it as like a 1 year foundational endeavor that requires to replumb everything. Think of it as AI systems can actually be sent into noisy IT setup. They can interact with noisy humans that are going to give instructions that may have mistakes, but they will figure out, and get to exposure. Put it into the hands of your employees, put it into the hands of beta users, get some feedback, and then you will improve. Weeks after weeks, you can make the system better if you follow the right methodology.
And in many ways, it's kind of bringing this startup mentality to businesses all around the world. And it's super powerful because this mission that we have at Mistral AI around being able to democratize the technology and make it accessible to all is really core to this mission overall.
Absolutely. And I think in that respect, generative AI is really empowering people to do much more than what they used to do. First of all, because if you connect the right sources of content and the right sources of information, anyone from finance can figure out what's happening in engineering. Anyone from any function can figure out that it needs an automation and build it very quickly by generating code and by leveraging all of the connections that the AI makes. So the fluidification of information within enterprises ensures that everyone should be able to deliver even on things that they haven't been trained for. You don't need to be a developer today to build an application that can be used by everyone in the company. And the approach we take there is to follow something which is, I think, quite gradual. To get started, it's useful to have our engineers that work with your team as a customer. So they can show how they build quickly, how they connect to the infrastructure we've built, and they can show how to quickly get to custom applications delivering value. But down the line, what we also do is to empower the people in-house that can then use our APIs, everything on our developer platform, and use our code generation tools really to develop to solve their own problem. You talk to the business owners and have a lot of problems. They know the processes that are hard to automate, etc. If they have the right tools, and if they see a couple of demonstrations on how to build with AI, they can do it themselves. And I think progressively as we go and in the years to come, I do expect that anyone in a company should have this capability of changing a bit how the organization is made and proposing radical changes that are increasing the efficiency, not with 5% or 10% because I'm just writing a mail with any chatbot, but because I've proposed like a full reorganization of the team that makes much more sense because the AI operates everything that is manual.
You regularly speak with CEOs all around the world, and I'm sure one of the questions that they ask you is, how does the company differentiate itself from OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google? What's the answer that you give them?
Well, two things. First of all, we are one of the few frontier AI companies building models, and the models that we release are always state of the art in some respects. And if you look at, we've always made sure that on multiple benchmarks, including human preference, we're always on the podium. So it's a never stopping race, I would say, in terms of like bringing model capabilities. But to a large extent, the model is not the thing that matters for ROI. And that's the third thing I tell all of the CEOs I'm interacting with, which is you need more than a model provider. You need an integrated way of building applications that scale within your company, that everybody within your company will at some point be able to do it themselves. And you need a certain level of expertise, because this expertise is not something that is easy to get. You need expertise on the process side, And we can help because we have a forward deployment engineering team that have high talent and that can get you started quickly. They can transfer a lot of knowledge as well so that you can continue to maintain, that you can do some use cases on your own. The second thing I tell them is, look, don't think of AI only about bottom line improvement. Be more ambitious and look at how you could improve the experience of your customers, how you could improve your product with artificial intelligence. And in general, this is always a question in their minds. And in general, they struggle because they need to rethink about the way they build software or they build hardware or they build their products. And that's where we can help again, because we can bring this forward deployment scientific team that can help with the new process of building AI software. And that's so that approach, which is much more integrated than some of our US competitors, is the thing that is really making us succeed. The other thing that, of course, is building the trust that you need when you sell to enterprises is that we are credible because we release models, because we're the leader in open sourcing models, especially the leader of the West. And that is actually super meaningful. And then on top of that, we have things that are not really CEO level, but more CIO level, which is we can deploy on-prem. We are like the most portable platform to deploy frontier AI today. And we can help you with we have so many bricks that will just save you a lot of time that you don't need to develop yourself. So that's the way we pitch Mistral. In general, the CEOs just come to us because they're starting to realize that we can help them. And that's the way we pitch the CIO as well, more on the technical side.
And I mean, this privacy first approach to AI is really important if you're a business, right?
It is. Privacy is extremely important for multiple reasons. But for one, if you want to build true differentiated AI systems, you need to pour a lot of your IP. So you need to trust your partner sufficiently so that you give them their IP. And one way around that is to just make sure that the IP is actually not leaving your premises. We bring the technology to you. Which physically ensure that nothing is actually flowing back to a third-party provider. So that's extremely important. In certain industries and in certain domains, it's actually a deal breaker if you don't have that. So defense is a good example. Public sector is a good example. And then in other domains, it's also even economically, it's better. If you operate at scale, it's better to have your own private cloud, etc. So that's a big, I would say not a very big, but it's a meaningful part of our of what drives people to us. We are the most portable platform out there, and so that's important. Then privacy, I think, has also very strong resonance when it comes to addressing consumer. We have a consumer product which is really a showcase of what we can do with enterprises, which is called Le Chat. And the reason why we built it is that we were not satisfied with the level of transparency and of privacy that our US counterparts were proposing. So Le Chat allows you to have strong governance over what we can record from you and what kind of data is stored on our servers. The other thing it provides, and that's very unique, is that it does, as every AI system, it learns about you. So it will interact with you. It will have multiple conversations. It will understand what you like, what you don't like, what are your center of interest, your fear, etc. But the thing is, our US counterparts learn that, but they don't tell you about that. And all of these things that they are accruing on the background are also ways of having influence over you. And we're starting to see that this is causing a lot of problems. Our approach there is to be fully transparent. The same way we are extremely transparent about the models that we release, the state that we manage on behalf of our users, whether consumers or enterprise, is something that we are fully transparent about. So the personalization of Le Chat, for instance, is something you can get access to, you can modify, you can delete, and you can disable, of course. So down the line, I think it's going to matter a lot because we're dealing with systems that are influence systems. You can turn them into influence systems. They will be the main entry point to information in the years to come, which means that they become potentially weaponized in a world where information is actually something extremely powerful. So by promoting transparency there, by promoting more privacy, and by releasing also open source models so that others can take our models and build their own product and with their own editorial orientation, etc. We're ensuring that we don't end up in a setting where you have free providers controlling all access to information, and that's actually quite critical to our mission.
Yeah, this mission of being able to, again, get frontier AI in the hands of so many people around the world. But similarly, this idea of being able to actually empower these users, giving users control, is kind of so critical.
It is, yeah, it's absolutely critical to understand what the machine knows about you. It's critical as a developer to get access to the model parameters and to the whole harness of the software so that you can make your own choices. The opacity of AI system is not something that we deem acceptable.
Let's just dive in for a second into Le Chat. How do you use Le Chat, and how do you see others using it?
So very pragmatically, I use it a lot for transcription and turning meetings into action items and sharing it with the team. I use it a lot to elaborate my internal communications, of course. Now that it's connected to all of the tooling that we have in Mistral, I use it to understand what's going on because the team has grown very fast. And to be honest, I think the only way we've managed to scale that fast while keeping a startup culture is to have this AI tooling that are helping us day to day. It allows the information to be shareable much more easily, and that's quite critical to me. So I use it because it's connected to our knowledge base, it's connected to our database, it's connected to also everything around the product operations, etc. I understand what's going on, and I can give the input when it's needed. And then finally, I also use it as some kind of a muse when I have strategic ideas, because it can do research for you. So if you're trying to figure out whether you should build a certain feature or whether your orientation about the way you're building agents is the right one, well, the system knows about technology. It also knows about searching like the general space. It can go on the web, it can browse it. And sometimes there are information that you're lacking. You haven't seen what a competitor is doing, or there's like some trends that are happening in like very small startups that you're missing, and you should be addressing them because it will be later your customers. And these things like market analysis, strategic thinking, I find that with the correct prompts, because really it's the systems is only as good as the way you're prompting them, but with the correct prompts and the correct ways of engaging, it can really drive new ideas.
You also get to see how users generally are using Le Chat. Are there any trends that you're seeing in terms of how people are using the product?
Yes, so we've started with really prosumers, so people that were using it to generate some code, to have like very technical questions. And progressively, we've been moving toward more general engagement. So people that are asking questions about, searching for information. That's a big use case, of course. But they're also more and more using it to plan. So to plan their travels, to also plan certain things that they need to buy. And more they're moving from a conversational discussions to things that are more related to projects. So they have projects, those are fairly complex, and they engage in conversations to refine them. And so that's something we have in mind, that's something we notice, and that's something that we're working on. We want to make sure that we have the best interface for our users to build their own projects. And that's what that means is that in terms of the people that are using our technology, it's there's always a lot of prosumers, I would say, but there's also meaningful engagement from a part of our user base which is not proficient. And it's especially true in Europe because I think the tone that we've set to our models and all of the conversational design that we've done is actually resonating pretty well. And the personality of Le Chat is something that we get praise for. We've been getting praise for a couple of months.
And that personality, how would you describe it?
Well, it's hard to describe. I'd say it tries to be, as neutral as possible whenever you're talking about politics, etc. But I think I would say that we've optimized for activity. I think and possibly that's a difference from what some of our competitors are doing. We want the system to be a system that is teaching you things, and so that is keeping you engaged. So one instance is when you ask it questions, it will propose a few directions to follow up, but it will always make sure that you're the one picking these directions and that you're engaging and using your critical sense to choose where you want to go. And what we see elsewhere is that there is a trend where instead of doing that, you're actually suggesting to the user a single answer and a single thing that it should be followed. And I think it's a great way of maximizing engagement because you don't need to think too much about what you're going to be discussing with the assistant. And in a way, you're basically watching TV, but we don't really want people to watch TV. We'd rather have them play video games. And so that's, I think, a pretty substantial difference. And I do expect that to increase in the future.
When you look at the government offerings, just in terms of what governments and public sectors and citizens need, what are you seeing in the AI space today?
Well, we see government engagement, which is, again, like a substantial part of our business, as multiple pillars. The first is how do you give access to AI to civil servants so that they actually get the productivity gains that the private sector is getting. So, I mean, again, like government is more or less a very big enterprise, much bigger than an enterprise in general, and they have the same problems. They have information sharing problems. They have automation problems. They have to write a lot of reports. They have to dive into a lot of different informations, whether structured or unstructured. So in that setting, there's a part of the public demand which is similar to what enterprise needs when it comes to process automation and general productivity. There is another part which is quite interesting, which is how do you engage with citizens? How do you use AI to scale certain public services that are a bit suffering from either underinvestment or because the structure of your population is changing? And so that's the case of healthcare. Being able to route people across multiple services is actually an important aspect. It's also the case of general public services like unemployment agencies. Unemployment agencies have a matching problem. They have a certain number of people looking for jobs. They have a certain number of jobs. And with AI, what you can figure out that potentially you have a match in between one person and maybe 3 jobs. And you can engage an assistant that is going to figure out in conversation whether that match is a natural match. So we have equipped the unemployment agency of France, for instance, with such a system where you have an active engagement to make sure that you're matching job to offers in the most refined way. So that's an example of a public service. And then finally, there's a defense aspect. There's always, and especially true in Europe, which is investing a lot in defense for regrettable reasons, but we do need to be competing with our adversaries. And because AI is actually changing human-machine interfaces, you're talking to computers thanks to AI. It's also changing defense systems. And so what that means is that defense systems that needs to be sovereign, because they can't really depend on supply chains that are not part of like the core of alliances. Well, those needs to have AI systems that are coming from within their boundaries, more or less. And so it's always a critical part of our public engagement. There's always a part around defense and a part around how do we integrate programs? How do we make sure that the defense of the countries we work with is equipped, is independent, and is sovereign.
One of the things that we've often talked about is this end-to-end AI solution that we're building that really is defining this category of its own. Can you speak to that?
Yes, absolutely. So this we've really evolved from just providing pure models to having the entire stack that allows to manage state, and so personalization and connection to data. Make sure that you have the right governance, the right permissioning, the right observability, so that when you deploy custom applications, you can look at what everything that is happening in terms of generation of content, etc. And we've also built like front-end bricks that we can stitch together very quickly to create applications that are solving business use cases. So in a way, what we have is a stack of multiple bricks that are required to build AI software. You have agents. You give them instruction, you give them a set of tools, they behave on their own. You have business logic, workflow orchestration, long-lived execution, etc. You have, of course, sort of the connection to data and the context. We call it the context engine, and then you have the front end. So how do you expose conversational interfaces? How do you get feedback from users, etc. And when we think about full stack and bringing all of these bricks, there's a substantial amount of glue that you need to bring to build the applications within enterprises. And the way we have made it work for our customers is to also bring the experts that work only with those bricks, that work with all of our coding generation tool to very quickly stitch things together and to get to a business use case that has been identified by our customers and that we can possibly help it identify. So from identification of use case to full delivery and in production in a way that is that you can monitor, that you can edit, and on which you can make iterative improvement. That's how we think about our full stack offering and end-to-end AI providing offering.
And an important element of this is Mistral Compute. For those who aren't familiar with Mistral Compute, can you explain?
Absolutely. And I dive there in really from model to applications. But what we are also investing in and what we are offering to our customers is this ability to rely only on us to provide AI systems. So that includes going all the way to the GPUs that we're operating. And the reason for why we started to do that is that we do need to have more infrastructure in Europe in particular. And we had a lot of customers that were looking for alternatives, and they were looking for GPUs, but they were also looking for a lot of services on top of the GPUs. And we had built those services. And today what we're able to offer is, first of all, our public cloud services running on our own infrastructure. So which means that we have no liabilities, we have no dependency to other providers. We're also able to provide access to GPUs that are state of the art and at a very good rate. And we're able to provide private cloud, so the GPUs that we own, on which we put a fully isolated environment that allows to build custom applications. So what we've done there is to be able to deliver value from GPU operation to applications that is bringing ROI to the enterprises. And that takes infrastructure, science, the core of our technology, and where we are committing to open source, and then everything on top, which is orchestration, data connection, observability, iterative improvement, combined with expertise, because expertise is needed to deliver value.
So the Series C fundraise, can you tell us a little bit more about it and about what you'll be doing with the funds?
Yeah, absolutely. We've raised 1.7 billion euro in a round led by ASML, which is also one of our major customers. What we're going to be doing with it is fairly simple. First, deploy more infrastructure to equip our scientists, as our endeavor to push the frontier of AI technology is starting to be quite extensive. We need to push the capabilities in physics, in mathematics, in coding. We need to make them better at social science, etc. So the team is growing, and as you know, an AI scientist needs to have a certain number of GPUs, otherwise they complain. So that's the first thing. And then, of course, we're investing heavily on growth because we are constrained by the number of people we have in the team. We're constrained by the number of people that can deliver value in enterprises. And so hiring fast, hiring in multiple regions, including in the US, where we're growing very fast, is key to our success, and we need to front some of the capital to make it work.
And then, you now have this role of being kind of CEO. What's it been like going from kind of scientist to CEO?
Well, I guess I see it as a scientific experience. What has been interesting is to move from a team of like 3 people to a team of more than 300 today. There's multiple steps. It's not all the way to 20 people. You can do it fairly organically, and then you need to get a bit organized. Hiring is a big part of the job because at some point you just need leverage, and you need to have the right leaders that are driving the team. Of course, I had to learn how to sell because that's not something I was doing. And what that means is, of course, selling is about understanding your customers' needs. And so that has got me to learn a lot about the businesses of our customers. So I think I'm more knowledgeable on that side. I'm, of course, much less knowledgeable on coding and on AI, unfortunately. I've been keeping up. I think I still read a lot of papers. I still engage a lot with the team. But I do trust all of our leadership and my co-founders to drive the technical part of the business. What's interesting is that with AI technology, and because we're building something very new, there's a lot of organization matters that we need to think from first principles. So in particular, how do we engage with customers? How do we use AI internally? How do we make sure that the science team and the product team operates together, whereas fundamentally they're not on the same cycle time? The science team is like 2 months, 2 months, 3 months iteration. Product team, it's 2 weeks. So how do you make sure that you have loose coupling across the multiple functions, and you have people working together but not getting in their own way? Is the one thing that I'm spending some time on, and I'm grateful that we have a great leadership for that. And for me, it's been a great learning experience, I should say. Still a lot of things to learn.
A few big questions for you that we can be kind of rapid fire towards the end here. There's always rumors around acquisitions and things like that. How do you answer when people ask you about those rumors?
Look, I mean, of course, I think we're an interesting company, and we've received multiple offers across time. We started the company to build an independent business that would allow us to bring science forward. This is the project. We've managed to deliver on that project for the last 2 years. We have just fundraised, so that means we can deliver on that for the next few years. And so what that means that we have a very strong path toward independence, toward being a major technology provider, and that's the path we're going to pursue because it's the most interesting one.
When people ask you about the impact of AI on jobs, what do you say?
Well, I tell them that, of course, it's going to change the skill sets that you need to have to contribute to any enterprise. And that means you need to train people to use AI. AI technology can empower you as a non-technical user to do a lot of technical stuff that you could not do without talking to a technical team. It enables you to solve problem on your own without getting blocked by the complexity of an organization. So the empowerment that AI brings to someone in an enterprise is actually extremely high. And you can get rid of so many manual tasks and focus on the things that actually bring value when it comes to being creative, when it comes to building relationships, because that's actually one thing that you cannot replace with AI. These two things are the one things that are going to matter. And so that's where people should be spending most of their time. So learn about AI, how to use it, and then also learn about what you need to do to be complementary to what AI can do. So to me, and it's no different than every technological revolution that we went under. Internet changed pretty profoundly how people were working. It's the same. It does mean that you need to be active in front of the technology. You need to be curious about the technology. It means that upstream in middle school, in high school, at university, we need to start training people to have a critical eye to the technology, to know how to use it, but to know when to not use it, and to know how to look at the outputs and be and always be a bit cautious about how that works. So we need to train these people. We need to train the youth, and that's why we're investing on partnering with universities, with schools, etc. And within enterprises, we need to retrain people. So they need to know how to use the technology, but they need to unleash the creativity that maybe they have that wasn't that useful because they were doing things that would not require it. But today, the brain that AI is promoting is the creative brain. And so people should unleash that creativity.
Robotics and AI. Really quickly, what do you think the future of that looks like?
I think it's a very interesting future, in particular because the vision systems that we have today are very close to a level of understanding of a human. And so what that means is that really just on the pure sensor perspective, you can get an understanding of the scene, which is extremely precise. What that allows you to do in turn is to actuate. And so in any kind of platform, whether humanoid or with wheels, you can actually use that understanding to take actions. I think it's going to take time, similar to like having self-driving cars. It's going to take more than a decade to actually have sufficiently safe and validated systems that can be rolled into production or rolled to the consumer space. But it's already a super interesting space where we are investing. We have a small division called Mistral Robotics, which is working on vision to action models. And not only is this bringing new capabilities to our model that is transferring to other problems, but it's also enabling a whole set of use cases for all of our customers. And so This is, of course, today this is a new bet. It's a small team, really focused on making vision to language, vision to action models work. But we think the opportunity for growth there is extreme.
Here's the last one for you. A lot of people all around the world look up to you as a leader. What advice do you give to the leaders of tomorrow?
I think the advice I would give to anyone looking at creating a company is that don't try and anticipate what's going to happen to you, because the thing you will enter, any space you enter is going to be extremely competitive, whether AI or anything else. And the one thing that matters is to be adaptive and to be resilient. You're going to have a lot of successes, but with any success comes the renewal of a promise, and you will need to reinvest, and nothing is ever granted. So that means that you need to have a fair amount of endurance. You need to be able to handle downturns. You need to be able to build on momentum when it starts, and you need to live the moment, right? If I were to look back, and if I knew what was going to happen to me 2 years ago, and if I had over-calculated it, I don't think I would have started. So you need to just go there, and you should the mindset you should have is you'll figure out along the way.
Got to believe in yourself.
Exactly. Yes.
Arthur, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.